someone stood outside my tent all night. I thought solitude was what I needed. Silence, distance, a place so far from people that the noise in my head would finally quiet down. That belief is what brought me into the forest that winter, and it's why I will never camp alone again. I had taken several days off work, shut my phone down to emergency only, and packed my truck with cold weather gear. My dog, Ranger, jumped excitedly into the passenger seat, tail thumping against the door. He loved car rides, and he loved the outdoors even more. I trusted him. That trust would end up being the only reason I made it out. The trail leading into the forest was barely recognizable as a road. Snow packed hard as concrete, ice glinting beneath my headlights. Pines crowded close on both sides, blocking the sky, swallowing sound. I drove slowly for nearly an hour without seeing another vehicle, another footprint, or any sign that anyone else had business being out there. When I finally stopped, it was at a forgotten pull-off, half buried under snowdrifts. No tracks in or out, just stillness. Perfect, or so I thought. We hiked deeper, crunching through untouched snow until we reached a small clearing ringed by thick trees. The forest stood tall and unmoving, like it was holding its breath. Ranger bounded around, nose to the ground, while I cleared space for my tent. Every movement felt louder than it should have, every breath visible on the frozen air. The temperature was already dropping fast. I worked quickly, staking the tent into frozen earth, laying down insulation, prepping my winter sleeping bag. I never camped unprepared, especially in cold conditions. Layers stayed on, gloves, hat, heavy jacket. As dusk settled in, I built a small fire and cooked a simple meal. Flames danced low, barely cracking the silence. Ranger lay near my feet, eyes half closed, content. Winter forests are unnaturally quiet. Snow swallows sound. Even the wind seems hesitant. That's why Ranger's sudden barking hit me so hard. He shot up, hair raised, staring into the tree line. I brushed it off at first. Deer, maybe an elk. Animals pass through all the time. I told him to settle down, and after a moment, he did. But something felt off. 20 minutes later, he barked again, this time deeper, sharper. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching through snow. I stood up, scanning the darkness. The steps stopped, then resumed, closer now. Ranger stopped barking entirely. His body went rigid. At the edge of the firelight, a figure stood partially concealed by the trees. A man. He didn't call out, didn't wave, just stood there, watching. I forced a casual tone, telling him he startled me. He stepped forward just enough for the firelight to reveal his face, expressionless, eyes locked on me. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. Not curious, accusatory. I told him I was camping with my dog, enjoying nature. The explanation felt thin the moment it left my mouth. He stared silently for several seconds, then let out a quiet chuckle. I mentioned calmly that I was armed. That only seemed to amuse him. He said something about manners, about how rude it was to threaten a guest instead of inviting him to sit. Then, without another word, he turned and vanished back into the forest. I didn't move for a long time after that. Eventually, I put the fire out completely, burying every ember beneath snow. No light, no attention. I zipped myself into the tent and pulled Ranger close. Inside, the silence returned, but it felt heavier now, loaded. Hours passed. Then Ranger growled. Not a warning bark, a low, sustained growl that vibrated through his chest. Footsteps again, slower, closer. They stopped directly beside the tent. I could hear breathing, shifting weight. Someone standing just inches away from a thin layer of fabric separating us. My hand wrapped around my gun, heart pounding so hard I was sure it could be heard through the tent walls. I whispered for Ranger to stay quiet. He didn't stop growling. I spoke out loud then, voice shaking but firm, telling whoever was there to leave. Silence followed. Seconds stretched like hours. Then the footsteps retreated, slowly at first, then faster, disappearing back into the forest. I didn't sleep, not really. I stayed awake until the sky began to lighten, packed everything in numb silence, and left the moment I could see the trail. I never returned. Solitude isn't peace when you're not truly alone. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the wilderness isn't nature, it's people.